Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Trades Talk. Got a very special guest in the studio today, Bob Grover with Pacific Landscape Management and the Osprey Group. Bob's an absolute legend in the landscape industry, and if you don't know about Bob, well, you're going to find out today. So I'm just going to bring him in and start chatting. Bob, welcome to Trades Talk.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate this opportunity, and it's been an honor and a pleasure to know you. You are incredibly innovative in our space, and I respect that a lot, and I learn a lot from you, and I like to share a lot with you as well.
Well, thanks, Bob. I sincerely appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you. I've looked up to you and a number of what I would consider legends of the landscape industry for many years. You've guided our industry in such a great way through all your work with NALP and other associations, along with, I think, building one of the premier landscape companies in the world. You've set a really great example. And today you're coming to us from the Big Apple. You're in Manhattan. Tell us a little bit how it's going out in New York this morning.
Well, it's sunny. It showered a little bit last night, but we walked to dinner and it didn't bother us. And I'm here partly, and we'll talk a little bit about my story. I'm in aiming toward retirement, and one of the things, my wife retired as a school teacher about 10 years ago, and I'm trying to wind things down. And one of the things that we both love to do is travel. So we're traveling more and more. And I'm learning that I'd work pretty much remotely from home anymore. And my home could be in Manhattan. I am in love with Central Park. And I'm going to spend part of every day for the next month in Central Park, running, walking, biking, touring, and I'm just enamored by that incredible space in the middle of one of the largest cities in the world, of how somebody thought way back that we need to set all that side apart, and what a treasure it is.
It is a treasure, and for any landscaper out there who has not visited Central Park, it is one of those must-visit bucket list places to go. The trees alone, if you're an arborist and respect trees. And you said it, Bob, the forethought that went into building that place and the way they created these, spaces. And yeah, it's a beautiful place.
One of the things that I think is really cool, it's seen great days and it's seen challenging days. It was a shanty town back during the Depression. In the 70s, it was an ugly place where you didn't want to go in Central Park or you'd get mugged or killed. In the last 30 years, it's transformed back into a great place. And a lot of that has to do with the Central Park Conservatory. There is a private organization that supports probably 3/4 of the work that happens. Most of the renovations and most of the work in Central Park is done by volunteers and without volunteer money. And that is just such a cool story that, it's an amenity of the New York City, but it's a privately funded park for the most part. Really cool.
That's really cool. It's interesting to see how that is happening more and more throughout our country, where volunteer-based organizations are stepping up to save parks, to revitalize parks. A lot of stuff here in the county of Santa Cruz. There's a organization called Friends of Santa Cruz County Parks, and they have been going and building new parks, renovating parks that desperately need renovation. And it's just a good message of, our government it can only do so much. And it's so big and so vast. As beautifiers of our communities, I think it's up to us to step up and really help to beautify our spaces. Yes. So let's go way back, Bob, to when you got your horticulture degree. You're very proud of your state and your college up in Oregon State, I believe, correct?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about where that all began and getting your horticulture degree. I think you're one of the first people to do that in Oregon State.
Well, the Oregon State University Horticulture Department's been around longer than me, but maybe going back to my story is, I grew up in Southeast Portland, and in the Great Northwest, kids picked berries back in the day. We weren't slave labor. We actually made money to buy our own stuff. I transitioned into a paper route because I didn't like to pick berries. And when I was about a sophomore in high school, I wanted a real job. And the closest job to me was a retail nursery about 2 blocks from my house. So I went there and I was a carry-out. I helped people take plants to their car. And over the rest of my high school career, I fell in love with plants. I was an outdoor kid. and thought, hey, maybe I should make a career out of this. So I enrolled at Oregon State and focused on a degree in horticulture, thought I was going to be a nurseryman, and went back to my retail nursery that next summer. And retail nurseries are really busy in the spring, and they calm down a little bit in the summer. And they said, well, we don't really have work for you this summer in the nursery, but you could go into the landscape department. So I did that my summers and transformed from wanting to be a nurseryman to being a landscape contractor, and graduated, and spent the last 40 years working in the landscape industry and absolutely love it. And this business started out being a love of plants, but it quickly became an opportunity, a love of people, helping our customers, and helping our employees develop and find great careers in this industry. And if I go back in 1983, a long time ago when I graduated, and I would be at a social event and somebody would be chatting with them, and you always ask, what do you do for a living? And, well, I'm a landscape contractor. And usually the answer was, oh, like, I thought so much of you before you told me what you did, because we have such historically a lack of respect of what we do. They think that we're all a bunch of hacks with a beat up old pickup truck and a lawnmower. And that bugged me for the longest period of time. And I think it inspired me I knew we were a professional industry and we're becoming more professional, and I wanted to lead in how we took care of our people and how we took care of landscapes, and focusing on sustainability and focusing on being a professional organization. And that has inspired me. And, we've built a pretty large, tremendous organization. And when I go into an event and I say I'm a landscaper and I get this, oh, I'm thinking, you don't frickin' know. It doesn't bug me at all anymore, because we've created something wonderful here. Our industry has, and I'm very, very proud of my team and what we've created here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. Well, it's such that story too, that when you tell someone you're a landscaper and the response you get, it's just funny. Especially they have no idea how sophisticated you have to be today to run a landscape company.
In Portland, Seattle, we have 500 employees, and oh gosh, today was really rainy. I bet that sucked working outside. It's like, I work outside in my own yard on a sunny day.
They have a vision of you pushing a lawnmower, riding a zero turn, and you're like, man, if it was only that easy, if only I could go back and just work in the field.
Yeah.
So you spent some time working under some pretty amazing people that mentored you and helped you build into your career before you started Pacific Landscape Management. Tell us a little bit about that time working under some mentors. What was someone that really stood out when you look back?
Yeah, I worked for a company called Northwest Landscape Industry out of college for essentially 15, call it 18 years. Wow. After that. And very, very progressive organization in what they aspired and raising the level of professionalism. And that's what inspired me to go to work for them, because they weren't just a landscape contractor. They were a leading edge technology, great with their people, great with their customers. And Rich Ackerman was one of the founders, Rich Ackerman and Jim Wathy. And Rich was very, very involved in NALP. And I really appreciate that, because he encouraged me to get involved in NALP. He was president of the association in the early 90s. And I got very involved on the board of directors back in the day as well. And just really, really inspired me to push the envelope of what is possible, push the envelope on how to take care of our people, push the envelope on how to continue to push the industry forward in being professional and technical. And I feel blessed that I had that experience of having one of the industry leaders be in my space where I could go to work for them. And I probably didn't appreciate that as much until I got there and involved and saw the industry on a larger scale. But I feel so fortunate that I had the opportunity starting my career working for a great organization with great people.
Wow. So you worked for them for over a decade, and you decided to start your own company. What was that like? What was the triggering point to say, you know what, I'm gonna go out and brave my own landscape company?
That's an interesting, I don't know that I ever thought, I think, romantically, I thought, geez, this is a great organization. I'll work here till I retire. Yeah. In the mid 90s, they'd been in business for 25 years or so. And they're a decade or more older than me, and they're trying to say, hey, what's our transition of our organization? They had very young kids at that point, and Nepotism can be wonderful. It can be challenging. And to assume that your kids are going to take over, especially when they're really, really young, is a challenge. So they were seeking opportunities. Should they have a manager buyout? There was 3 of us key managers in the organization at that point, and it wasn't really worth interest in taking on that kind of risk to buy them out. Looked at a couple opportunities, and that was the beginning of some of the consolidation of the industry. And
Right.
Service Master through Tree Green ChemLawn came along and said, hey, let's see if we can roll up the landscape industries like we did the lawn care industry. And Northwest Landscape Industries was one of the first 3 companies that sold that became True Green Land Care. And that was interesting and actually really exciting in the beginning, because we got partnered with a bunch of people that I got to know from NALP. It was Alka back in the day, Rupert Landscaping, Miners Landscaping down in Texas. And it's all of a sudden all these partners of mine through NALP were now partners of mine in our business. And it was fun, exciting times of developing this new brand. And things started to fall apart a little bit. At that same time, there was an equity group that wasn't involved in the landscape industry at all, decided they would start consolidating this industry under the brand Land Care USA. And for about a year, Service Master and Land Care were competing and buying companies across the United States and multiple companies in Atlanta and LA. And then a year in, Land Care decided maybe it's time for us to transition out. This was just an investment to them. They reached out to True Green and said, would you like to buy what we've acquired? And they said yes. So they folded the 2 companies together. And that was probably not a good decision by Service Master. For example, I think in Atlanta, they had 22 companies that had been consolidated between the 2 brands in 18 months. LA, somewhere around 20 as well. And their business plan was, after all of that, they were going to grow at 20% organically. And it's hard to buy 24 companies in one metropolitan area and expect them to consolidate together and grow organically 20%. So the wheels fell off. They started making some dramatic changes. The 2 owners at Northwest had left. I was ending up being regional manager of the Pacific Northwest. I was traveling a lot to Seattle. My division VP was in California. Our home office was in Memphis. And I just got tired of traveling, tired of being a number cruncher, and I wanted to get back to landscaping and taking care of people. So in 2000, I quit my job after 18 years and took a little sabbatical, decided what I wanted to do. Had several people wanting to hire me, and I thought, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this again. I'm either going to get out of the industry or I'm going to maybe do it myself. So talked with a couple of people that I'd worked with over a decade who were disenchanted as well, and we started Northwest or Pacific Landscape Management in 2001. And, again, kind of just thinking simplistically, gosh, if we could just grow a business that did $4 or $5 million, that would take care of us and our families. And quickly, we did have success. We learned a lot. We knew how to operate, how to please customers, how to inspire employees. And we started attracting great people to our organization, and we quickly figured out, A, growth is good. B, it's not just about Bob and Elias. It's about everybody that we attract here. Everybody wants opportunity. Everybody wants growth. And so we became a growth company with no aspirations of being any particular size. We just want to grow every year to provide opportunity. And we grew. Yeah. We attracted more and more great people out of the industry to our team, and we continued to grow and develop opportunity for them. And it was incredibly fun and exciting. And the thing that I learned a lot about how to operate a business, some great things and some poor things. And what I quickly learned, and whether you are involved with a larger organization, a smaller organization, if you focus strictly on what makes money, you're probably going to miss a few steps. If you are really proud and think that making money is wrong and you do all the great things that don't honor the fact that you need to make money, you're going to fail as well. So we lead with doing the right thing and figure out how to make money at it. And I think it's very, very important to honor both sides, but you got to lead with doing the right things for your customer, doing the right things for your people, and challenging yourself to figure out how to make money while doing great things.
Yeah.
And that is a flaw of larger organizations that are financially focused. I think that's a little bit of a flaw of the equity partnership environment that you can get into. Is in the end of the day, they want to grow a great brand, but they're also looking at everything on a financial basis. And sometimes you need to challenge yourself that you need to do the right thing that can have a short-term financial impact. And it's more difficult to do that when you have an equity partner that's focused on the financial results.
Right. The seasonality of landscaping, not just in a 12-month period, but over a 5-year cycle, it does seem, at least for us, in my experience, you go through these years and times where things are going great, and then you need to kind of expand into a new market or hire the next round of overhead team members, or, you have these movements that you have to make that have short-term quarterly impacts on profit, and they seem to pay off, but it's hard to look past that 1 or 2 quarters of
Yeah.
not so good money.
Well, predictability and consistency is really important in that environment too. And, you can start off slow and go, I've been doing this for 25 years. I know we're going to catch up before we get to the end of the year. And saying, here, just trust me, we're going to catch up doesn't work very well. Or you have a really big job one year, and,
Yes.
we deal a lot with trailing 12-month.
Yep.
Well, I didn't have that really big job, enhancement, renovation job, construction job in February of 26 that I did in 25, but we really look at my trailing 12 months. So those are the kind of things that I like to be opportunistic. And when opportunity arises, I want to chase it and capture it and not create opportunity that's not there to be consistent. And that again, that's one of those challenging things. And, we're learning how to deal with that. But opportunistic, we've won so many deals because we were really opportunistic when the thing came and didn't try to create, it's like, what do I have to do to put you in a car today? I don't want to sell people when they're not ready to buy. But by God, when somebody is not happy with their current vendor, we're going to chase that opportunity, and we're going to win most of the time because we're going to make their lives easier. But if they're happy, I don't want to chase them. I want to chase people that aren't happy because I can make them happy.
That, I think, is so great to hear for the business developers out there. It truly is a long game.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that. When you're, in a sales process and let's just use a hypothetical situation. You're bidding on a large property and they're just going out to bid because it's the 3rd year, the contract's up, and they just want to go out to bid, but they're fairly happy. You walk the place, the property looks amazing. What's your approach in a situation like that? What do you tell the client during that sales walk?
Well, that's I think a really good question that I wish I had the statistics, because I'll say in vague generalities is we probably less than half or maybe less than a quarter of the work that we've sold over our history has been in a competitive bid relationship. When you get into, hey, we've qualified 3 or 5 bidders and we're going to give you all the same specs and send us, it's 100% going to be about money. And even sometimes they'll send you this long list of, well, no, it's not just about money. We're going to have these other criteria. But I've learned that if it's a large bid list, it's almost always going to be based on financial metrics.
Yeah.
Where we've sold most of our work is a lot of times it's when we were on that bid list. We weren't selected because we weren't always low bid. And somebody got disgruntled with who was low bid, and they were impressed by our package and what we had offered. And they call back and say, hey, would you come back and take a look at our landscape? We'd like to work out a deal with you. And in a negotiated situation, we can usually find a package financially that works for somebody without having to go head to head and toe to toe with somebody else. So we have won work in competitive situations, but in those, a lot of times we will do the best that we can for the right price. And, going into a bid situation, a lot of times it's shocking how often hey, what is your budget? People think that people won't be told. Well, I bet 60% of the time somebody tells what their budget is. Well, I know what the bogey is. I can develop a package that's around that budget. And and you can say, especially in contract maintenance, when you get a proposal with a set of specs for a property, I think specifiers thinks that those specs are going to be identical with how Justin or Bob sees that world. And there's so many variables in contract maintenance that you can do more or less of. And it's really hard to get apples to apples. Building a project, there were so many plants and so many square feet and so many yards and all that kind of stuff. It's a little more consistent with specifications for an installation project than it is for a maintenance project. And we've just found we want to find people that are not happy, and we want to find out what their budget is, and we will give them a package. We believe that we can give people more value for a dollar because of our efficiency and our sophistication. So all else being equal, for the same dollar, you're going to get more from us.
I love that. For the same dollar, you're going to get more. And when you're in a negotiation and you're invited back because they really like what you do, and I think a lot of our listeners find themselves in this position because people who listen to this podcast are people who are trying to be better and raise the bar. And when you do that, I think you put off a different aura during that bid walk, and people pick up on that. So let's say you get invited back, you're a little bit high. Without giving away the secret sauce, what are some of the tactics that you use to try to find alignment with their budget versus the package that you're proposing?
I don't know if I can answer that question specifically, but one of the things that we've found is when there is a wide variation in the pricing in, say, a competitive bid, one of my simple lines is, we all sell labor. We all have to pay similarly labor costs. And sometimes people will say, well, we're a large company. We have strong buying power, for our fertilizer, whatever. In contract maintenance, maybe 5% of our cost is material, and the rest of it is labor and all the supplies that goes in and around labor. And so to have somebody be 20% lower, you're not going to get the same number of hours on the property, and we're pretty comfortable for the same number of hours we're going to get more accomplished. So I'm always challenging people with that phrase of, if the price is a lot less, you're probably going to get less. Let's talk about the specifications. Let's talk about your site. What is really important to you on the site and what is less important? And it's really interesting to dig deep into what they honor and what they like, what their tenants like and appreciate, their employees like and appreciate, their buying public coming in. What are they trying to accomplish with their landscape? And it may not be specifiable, but I can figure out with what they're saying, what they really like or what they think is really valuable, that I can internally in my mind within our team adjust the specifications, maybe without rewriting them. And we've also found that if somebody is challenging you on, well, they say they're going to mow, 34 times and you're only going to say 32 times, that we're probably going to fail in that scenario too. Is we're going to make you happy. We're going to keep your landscape looking nice. We're going to communicate with you to make sure that we are giving you the focus and attention on those areas you need to it. These are specifications that give you average of a similar project of what we might do, but we're going to vary them. If we're going to mow weekly, we're not going to mow it twice weekly, but we're going to mow it weekly. But when we show up, if it doesn't need to be mowed today, we're going to do something else that's going to make the project look better. So we're going to vary the specifications to give you what you want when you need. And when you've got a guest coming into town, or your investor comes into town, or your owner comes into town, and you call and say, I need something special tomorrow, and tomorrow's motor service day, we're going to show up because we're going to listen to what your needs are, and we're going to be heroic when we need to be and try to figure out how to dial that in. And if somebody doesn't have an experience with you, it's harder for them to believe that. But a lot of our work comes off of referrals, and we'll also say is talk to Larry, talk to Susan, ask them about their experience with previous vendors when they hired us. So really, really like when people call our references, because it's hard. You're going to trust a reference more than you're going to trust Bob telling you what you're going to do.
Absolutely. But I really, really like that take. What I'm hearing is it's more of a dance. You've got to get the specifications, and you have to have a contract, and it's black and white on paper. But on the job site, and I completely agree with this, when you're on the job site and the crew shows up, there has to be some level of decision making happening day in and day out, week in and week out, of what are we focusing on? How does the entrance look? Where does the president park? And where does he walk or she walk from the car to the employee entrance? And maybe we don't need a mow today, but we do need to get in and make sure there's not a weed on site, not even a little one, because we know the general manager hates weeds. Like my dad always said, the things that stand out to him the most are the things that most people miss, which are tree stakes on trees that don't need them anymore. and,
Yeah.
and
That one weed,
So there is a level of ambiguity that is actually plays in your favor, it sounds like. And when you train your team, and you talked a lot about people development, to see these things, the results tend to show up in the field.
One of the things that I think we have really thrived at is learning to communicate, and some of the common complaints I get on Brand X when maybe they're calling us because they're tired of dealing with it. I can't get a hold of my account manager. I've asked my account manager to do this project, and I'm going to pay him extra for this enhancement project, and they haven't got back to me with even a proposal. Or they said they'd get this done by Thursday, and it's a week after Thursday, and I haven't heard from them, and it's not done yet. Of this lack of communication. And I think sometimes people put their head down and they're working really hard and they're focusing on the field and they're managing all this stuff, and they kind of forget they're doing it for a person or an organization, and they forget to communicate that. And I really have strived over our career, and I think our team has done a really, really good job of almost over communicating. I like to tell them what we're going to do. I also like to tell them what we didn't get done, because I want to tell them when they're going to get it done again. If a customer goes out to a site and sees something or other that doesn't look right, and they don't have an answer in their head of why it doesn't look right or when it's going to look right again, they're going to be irritated at our organization. So I'm probably a bigger fan of telling people when you didn't do something or other, because they're going to find out, or if you made a mistake, you broke something or other, you killed something or other. Boy, just call them and say, I'm sorry, but our team was out on site today and they did a lousy job mowing. Or I'm sorry, our team was out on site and I told you we were going to prune that hedge, but they had trouble and they didn't get it pruned. We're going to get that. We're going to have a crew back there tomorrow, or we're going to make sure we get that done next week. When you tell a customer something that they could see on their own that's not going to make them happy, if they know it before they see it, you almost always get a free pass. And so I think sometimes it's human nature to say, maybe they won't catch that I didn't get it done, or maybe they won't, I'll fix it before they find it. They always do. And they call you up and they're pissed. And when I told them before they saw it or called me up, now they're happy because I called them and told them that we did something wrong. And it almost goes against human nature. But that whole theory of tell them what you did, tell them what you're going to do, tell them what you didn't do, give them a plan, make a commitment, remind them that you're going to do it today. If you didn't get it done today, tell them you're going to get back there and do it tomorrow. Is when your customer sees a property or gets a tenant or somebody to call about something, or you want them to know what happened or didn't happen. And the appreciation you get for communication of details. Property managers, property owners, none of them are botanical garden owners. They have a business. They have something or other that the landscape supports, and that's where their focus is. We're the ones that need to focus on the landscape to make their job easier and keep them informed as to what we're doing. It seems simple. It's hard to pull off because you get distracted, but by God, that's, I think, our number one. That, and we have consistent staff, that the same people taking care of the landscape on the operation sides have probably been there 2 or 3 years, are people they're talking to. We have account managers with 15 years experience managing the same portfolio, because they're inspired to do great work and they're taken care of well and they get new opportunity and their portfolios grow. And that consistency of staff and great communication. I think we do a great job at landscaping, but we lead with great people and great service. and do the best we can with your landscape. Because in the end of the day, mowing it a little bit better doesn't get you any more power. Being acceptable. I have a phrase, just don't suck at the landscape part.
I love
And
that
for the
phrase.
longest time, people in my organization says, but we don't suck. I didn't say you can suck at the landscape part. I said, just don't suck. But if that's all you focus on is doing great work, you're not talking to your customer and you're not going to get credit for stuff. I love to call people and say, my God, it looks great today. We got things all dialed in. We had everything pruned. We got all the leaves picked up. It's fall. You may not notice that. Our account managers will send customers a lot of times on a weekly basis a picture of something that we did or didn't do. The crew leader sends a picture to their operations manager. He packages it up, sends it to the account manager. Our account managers aren't on site every day, but they've got the ability to send that information through our system to customers. And it's like, wow, you are on top of everything. How are you everywhere?
Yeah.
We have a whole team sharing that kind of information. So it's just, communication is so vital and critical.
That is absolute gold. I hope there's a lot of account managers listening to this podcast, because what you just said is the secret to client retention.
100%.
And what's exciting is it's not that hard. It's just, you got to be consistent and you got to communicate. And I love your quote. We use it all the time at K&D. I've heard it quite a bit. It's one of my favorites. Just don't suck at the landscaping. And it's true. We've actually told clients, hey, there are people out there who will, especially owner operators, small crews, that will do an amazing job at the landscaping. They will take so much pride in making sure there's not a blade of grass out of place. But when it comes to enhancements or an irrigation leak or a question on the invoice or something else that's needed, like a quick update on Friday before the owners come into town for the weekend meeting, they're going to struggle getting those things done and communicating. And so it's kind of, what would you rather have? And I think when we work into that upper echelon of clientele, whether it's a large HOA or a corporate campus, I've found that clients tend to value the communication and the ability to get things done more than just like perfect landscaping. So I'm sure you and
relative. Yeah, perfect is relative.
Yeah, it's relative. I'm just gonna, like, you and I could go and pick apart a property, but your average property manager isn't going to be able to really tell the difference between a B plus and an A plus in terms of the quality of a cut on a lawn.
Let me give you a little example of that, of something that, two examples of that. Way back in the day, working for Northwest Landscape Industries, we were really proud of how we mowed our lawns. We used real, triplex reel mowers to mow the lawns, because by God, we could put down these stripes, and every other week we changed the patterns. And we used to take pictures of properties for award. It was like, oh my God, look at that. It's a freaking golf course. Yeah. Well, you know what? Those are more expensive to main machines, and they're not as efficient in getting the lawn cut. And we would be getting some price pressure. And especially after we started Pacific, it's like, I don't know if we can pull that off. So we, over time, as we built, we cut with rotary cut mowers, and they don't put the same pattern on a lawn as a real cut. Nobody noticed. I was proud of the cross hatching and all that kind of stuff. My customer didn't notice. And then in our early expansion, we partnered with, bought a company in Seattle, a guy that was ready to retire, had been in business for 3 years, great organization. And as we're going through kind of some details and talking about this and that and how do our programs similar differently and get into their turf care, well, they were fertilizing almost twice as much as we did. And we've learned over time, customers want their lawn not to be brown, and green is a relative color. On a scale of 1 to 10, 6 will do. He's at an 8 or 9 or a 10. And I remember him saying in a meeting one day as we were doing some of this consolidations, like, we're known for our turf color and quality. And I go, really?
Yeah.
Show me an email, show me a phone call, show me a nice little note that somebody wrote you that says, by God, you've got the greenest grass and I love it. And he shut up, because he is very proud of his turf care. His customers just wants his lawn to be alive and green. So we've learned a lot through that, is don't self-evaluate we used to fill out evaluation forms and send them to our customers. That takes time, and I won't tell you shouldn't do that, but I would rather have a field man or account manager meet with a client on site or talk to them on the phone, tell them what we're doing, ask them if they have any feedback. Don't fill out that form. You're self-evaluating and you're wasting your time. Talk to your customer. Spend all your time talking to your customer and updating your customer on what's going on and what.
So tell me more about that. I think that's actually a great point and a bit contrarian to the most of the industry folks I talk to out there that really, they hound this idea of site audits or site recommendations or reviews by your internal team. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
We do site audits. So I don't want to say don't do a site audit, but don't do a site audit that a self-review. Okay. When you send a site audit saying, hey, the turf is acceptable, the pruning is acceptable, the whatever is acceptable, I think you're more likely to get set up to where a client's going to say, no, it's not. That's not what I wanted. What we do in our site audit is say, here are things that are going on in your landscape that I think you need to be aware of. A lot of times it is not directly selling an enhancement, but it's setting your customer up to know that there's an issue out there that they're probably going to get an enhancement proposal at their next budget proposal around this. Hey, we're starting to have trouble with the irrigation system here. The tree roots are starting to grow up and compete, and I think we're going to need to enhance the irrigation system in this next year or two. Okay, they got a bug in their head that they're probably going to get a proposal. So when they get a proposal, it's not out of the blue that something's gone wrong. So we're not evaluating ourselves. We're letting them know what's going on their property, because it's, it could be a weird weather year, weird weather month. It could be, a particular infestation of some kind of an insect or disease. Could have been a heat dome, really hot, really cold, whatever. These things happen, and I'm not sure the typical customer understands the environmental impacts or the fact that things age. If you don't,
it's alive.
If you don't repaint your building, if you don't update the entrance, if you don't re-roof, if you don't repave, if you don't seal, all these things for the physical structures, we have all those same things in the landscape, and you got to be keeping people informed as to all those things, so they're understanding that they're getting older, they're getting out of date, they need to be done. And we, in our revenue stream, where it's about 50-50 commercial contract maintenance to some level of repair or upgrade, we believe that if you don't spend as much on the enhancement, your property will slowly decline over time. And are we focused on selling enhancements? Only when they solve problems for customers or fix stuff because it's got old, or modify the landscape because there's something new out there that, irrigation technology, weather-based irrigation, drip irrigation. Hey, let's get rid of the lawn there because it's competing with the trees and the parking strip and the parking island, and you're wasting water. We can see all these various things. If all you do is go out there and do a really great job of mowing their lawn and pruning their bushes, that landscape's going to decline. So you need to constantly be evaluating and communicating what your landscape needs, or you'll get left holding the keys when it becomes an ugly old landscape.
And then they blame you for why it doesn't look good. So,
and when they come back and say, hey, why? Well, I gave you a proposal last year and the year before that to fix that. Oh, that's right. They can always say no to a proposal. We don't force anybody to buy, but we sure give them lots of options to find the stuff that's important to them.
I think that methodology and that approach is one of the reasons why you guys have been so successful on enhancement sales. You mentioned kind of, it sounds like a bit of a 1-to-1 ratio is what you're shooting for on properties, which is pretty high for the industry.
It is. And I will tell you, I'm continually scared to death that our customers will someday call me and say, hey, God, all I ever do is hear from your account managers when they're trying to sell me something rather. And we work really, really hard. No, they're constantly communicating, and a part of that communication is a solution to a problem. And it usually starts with a thought and an idea and a conversation that's followed up with a proposal. So when they get that proposal, they're expecting it, they're wanting it. They may not be able to afford it, but we've not just led with proposal after proposal after proposal. It's a conversation that leads to a proposal, and it's a solution to a problem. It's not an enhancement of revenue.
Yeah, that's well said. I think so let me ask you this. When you are purchasing and partnering with a new company in a new market, and you see that their enhancement push through is only 10 or 15% of their revenue, do you see and think immediate opportunity there? And have you seen post transaction companies increase their enhancements by applying this methodology?
That's probably more a concern than an opportunity, because
Yeah. Okay. I like
if
that.
we partner or we buy another company and we turn around and start changing, that dynamics of getting more and more proposals, yeah, there's probably opportunity there, but it's going to take a while to get people to understand and appreciate and believe that. So, and I will say that our first acquisition was in Seattle, and our original plan was to grow into Seattle exclusively. And we found a couple of small companies, one that was ready to retire, one did mostly construction and had a growing maintenance piece that they really were construction people and wanted to sell that off. So, and neither of those had really great enhancement upsells. And, that was 4 years ago. And our enhancement upsell percentage and our acceptance of thoughts and ideas on that has gotten better, but it's a slow process. People can't go from spending 50% upsell to 100%, in 1 year. It takes a while. You have to train them and teach them that these are investments as opposed to that. So as we've looked at, and we've been very, very careful in our acquisition activity, and there are actually, honestly, some groups that we saw that, have a 30% upsell percentage. It's like, it's going to be challenging to turn around and take too long to turn around. And that's a signal that maybe that's not the kind of company that we want to partner with. There might be opportunity there, but that's not their culture to solve problems for their customers, and it's going to be a long time to turn.
Wow, that's great insight. I think that's the experience talking versus, someone with myself. I haven't purchased or transacted a company. So I see opportunity. Oh, we can increase their enhancements. You see, well, their clients have been trained and their employees have been trained maybe not to do that. So that's going to be more of a lift than an opportunity. I think that's really, really well said. Since we're on that topic,
example of that is, especially one of the things that we've done over the last, maybe a decade and a half is we have an account manager that manages the properties for the customer. He's the primary client contact. All the communication goes to that person. He does not manage the field. He's partnered up with a field manager that he's operationally focused, and he manages the field. He schedules the work. Those two communicate back and forth. Smaller companies, and sometimes the same person does both. And what we found is if you do both, you're probably more an operations person than an account manager. And you're going to focus on that, and you're going to be offended by solving problems because you're doing a great job managing the work, and talking to the customers is secondary versus that, making that landscape so perfect. So we've set that up to work separately. So we want people that like to talk to people, that like to solve problems, that want to communicate and immerse themselves into that. They need a partner that's going to get the work done out in the field. But if you focus on doing both, you're not going to do either really, really well. So, and they're not salesmen, they're problem solvers. And a lot of times problem solving does cost some money. We'll have customers calling us saying, hey, I'd like to do X. We'll say, I'm not sure that's a really good idea. How about we give you a color out? Tell me what you're trying to achieve, and let me see if I can come up with a more cost-effective or a better long-term solution to what you just suggested to us. Do we do what people want? Yes. But if they're asking us to do something rather that doesn't make sense, we'll probably challenge them. And then if they still consist, I want to do that, we'll do it. But I think it's fair to challenge a customer when they call you and ask you to do something rather that's not going to solve the problem they're trying to solve.
Well, the pattern you're laying out is a pattern of trust and relationship building. Like talking someone out of spending money, or maybe spending less money to get the same result or the same desired outcome creates tremendous trust with a client. And how, yeah,
back to that, admitting you did something wrong and you're going to fix
yes.
it. You can't comprehend how much trust you build when you're honest and admit failure.
So,
but have a solution, by God.
yeah.
Even if you don't have the solution today, hey, we screwed up and we're going to fix it. I'll get back to you. Boom. Problem solved.
Yeah. Wow. How do you get people into that seat as an account manager? Is there a training program? You're taking people sometimes directly out of a college or university setting and putting them into an account management seat, or is there a training track that you guys have created to help get them to this point?
Yeah, and that's developed over time. We used to run folks through, they would be maybe a site manager on a large site or a large portfolio, and they would take over some of the field manager operational responsibility and the customer contact responsibility. But again, we're setting themselves up of saying you have to understand the operational stuff well enough to be able to manage operations. One year we had somebody that was actually going to school at a community college, interested in being a designer. So we had her working in our design and estimating department. And the hit manager of that department came to me one day and said, hey, Molly's getting ready to graduate. And I know that she thought she wanted to be a landscape designer, but I think she'd be a great account manager. I think you should talk to her and see if she'd like to do that. And we did. And she went into account management and she's had a great career. And since she came on, I think we've had a dozen account managers hired and developed in that period of time, and we run them through the design and estimating department. They get to understand how our bids work, how the Aspire system works, how the communication works, and how all that kind of stuff. And they're learning that account management side through design and estimating. They don't need to know the operational side. We're going to set them up with an operations manager in the future. So we hire most of them out of either 2 or 4 year schools today. Sometimes they'll go more quickly into an account manager program, but a lot of times they'll spend about a year in that design and estimating department. Then we'll get them as an associate account manager. They'll give them a little portfolio so they had that direct contact with the customer. And when they have success at that, we'll give them a full-on portfolio. So it's a little bit of baby steps along the line, but we want to make sure that somebody understands our system, understands our philosophy, what and how we sell things before we actually throw them out there. Really, really important that is so vital to the success of our organization. Have somebody knowledgeable and cut from our cloth to be managing our properties. And that's been really, really successful.
Yeah. Geez, I really like that. It makes sense that the design and build kind of side where you're designing and pricing and working through enhancement type projects leads you into becoming a great account manager. So you can identify the opportunities in design and propose those.
What we've also found is, surprisingly, in the landscape contracting programs at community colleges and universities, a significant portion of them aspire to be a designer. And I don't want to disrespect a designer or a landscape architect, but in our commercial contracting industry, there's a little bit of a glass ceiling at a designer. There is not a glass ceiling in an account manager. So their career opportunities, you get to do a lot of design as an account manager through solving problems. If you just want to sit down and do all the fancy drawing of designing all day long, but if you want to inspire customers with some design, some of our account managers do some of their own design. They still use the design and estimating department, but they'll start with a thought and an idea, and it's a great career option. We have some people that'll probably retire as an account manager making good money. You can also become a branch manager, go up the one thing that we found, I'm maybe going down a little bit of a rabbit hole. We've tried to design our program where you can make, I have an account manager making 150 grand. Between the salary and the compensation and all that kind of stuff. He's not going to be a branch manager. He is an incredible account manager. Branch managers need to work through people. that's not that's not a slam of saying he's not that kind of person, but he is so passionate about his property, so passionate about that customer relationship. And he knows that, and he's very happy where he's at, and he's going to make good money, and he'll retire as an account manager. And we have other people that are great to work through people, and those are going to become branch managers.
I love that. It's an amazing time in the landscape industry where people can make that type of money being an account manager, and make it make sense on the profit and loss sheet too, to the investors and the owners. And I'm just so excited about where the industry is going, because I just see this becoming more and more of an opportunity with the technology. And you guys have been on Aspire for a very long time, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So what has that allowed you to do specifically with an account manager book of business, and the data that comes out of a system as robust as Aspire? How does that help you guys run a better business, having a technology that you can build on?
In a couple of ways. I think first and foremost, it helps us be way more consistent with the proposals, whether it's a maintenance proposal or an enhancement proposal going out the door, that we build templates within Aspire for various types of commercial maintenance programs and all of the associated enhancements. Back in the day, you'd start from scratch. Okay, we need to do a lawn renovation. What do you need? Well, I need this much and I need that much. And you'd put it together, and you'd have 5 different account managers coming up with wildly different approaches for the same problem. So with an Aspire, we're going to get pretty close to the same result, because we have over time evaluated each of those programs and dialed in those templates to get you to the right solution, the right number of hours, the right amount of materials, and then the right description what you're going to do. And they're all a little bit different, but if you're starting from something really consistent, and then if that particular type of work is underperforming, we can evaluate, do we need to update are we over estimating or underestimating different aspects of it. So it's helped us be really, really consistent. And then it also helps us evaluate, where are we making money or where are we not making money? Again, we're wanting to sell the right stuff to the right people. So we're not going to necessarily choose, let's sell this because it makes more money, but let's determine if it's not making any money, we got to figure out, or if we're not selling enough of it, we got to reevaluate. Maybe we think it's important and valuable, but if the general customer base isn't thinking that, maybe take that off of one of our menu items. We thought it was great, but nobody's buying it. Or this is really great, and it's not making enough money to justify the effort that goes into it. Let's adjust that to make sure that we're charging the right amount of money. Even on the other side, it's like there's occasions it's like, man, we've overestimated what it takes to do this type of work. We can sell more of it if we adjust that down to make the reasonable level of profit. Let's not just accept that there's over profit. That over profit is missing the opportunity of selling more.
Right. I think that awareness of your numbers and profit per property and profit per service, having that clarity as an owner and operator of a company is incredibly valuable. And I look back to pre-Aspire, and I can't even believe we ran so blindly on certain properties and certain services. So those thinking about getting on a new system, and maybe you're operating out of QuickBooks and spreadsheets, it's definitely worth the dollars. It comes back to you at least 3 or 4-fold in terms of the price you pay.
Yeah.
So Bob, a lot of people right now are in the spot where they've grown a nice company and they're looking at potentially exiting or partnering with a strategic platform. And they're maybe at a bit of a loss of what are they looking for, and how do they go through this process. We aren't going to be able to dive too deep into this with the time we have left, but I'd like to just ask you a couple questions about, when you decided to transact and partner, and maybe what are some of the things that went really well? What are some of the things maybe that were lessons learned through that period, I guess 5 years ago?
Maybe just start really on the high level. If somebody is considering doing that, and I have a friend who just, I believe, is finalizing a deal to sell his company. And I've known him for a long time. And when we did our partnership, I was, about the same age and, strategy of what I'm trying to accomplish. And I'm not ready yet. Well, when he finally got ready, he wants to be done.
Ah,
And
yeah.
I think one of the challenges, and when we made a decision to do a partnership, two things that we did that I think is really important. And granted, maybe the size and where we were in the place within our market is different than if you were a smaller operator, but I felt very, very responsible that I wanted to transition. I didn't want to just sell and leave, capture all of my value. I wanted to usher this organization into the new, the new regime, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to just sell and leave, because everybody or every organization that I'm familiar with in my market, that's almost how everybody's done it. They've decided to sell, they sell, they sell virtually all of their equity in the organization, and they maybe stay around a year. A lot of times there's a year required you stay around, but they're out the door.
Yeah.
And that leadership vacuum of an owner entrepreneur that built it up forever, don't don't minimize the impact of yourself personally. So I believe it's important that you prepare to transition and have it be a several year training. We also kept a significant amount of equity in our organization,
Right.
and we are on, keeping us on the hook. I could have taken the money and run, but I've still got a lot of money invested in this organization, so I feel beholden to that. The other thing that we did is we created a profit interest group. So we took of the money we left in the company, we left a large chunk of that into what's called a profit interest group. So all of the increased value of that over this term of this ownership with our equity partner, all of that gets split up between 45 people on our team.
Wow.
So when we told them that we partnered, we said, and you guys have an equity stake going forward. And when we're successful, you guys are all going to have a financial windfall. And we have not lost anybody. And we have people very, very excited about the struggles and challenges. When we bought the two companies in Seattle, all of our account managers and field manager raised their hand and said, hey, what can we do to help align those people in Seattle? So we created this buddy system to where every new field manager in Seattle had a field manager partner in Portland that could help usher them through what it was like to be an account manager. Same thing with the account managers. And it's been wonderful to have people not afraid of the transition. Bob and Elias are still here 4.5 years later. We're still going to be here for a while. And by gosh, we're going to transact over the next couple of years, and these guys are all going to get a nice reward. Really, really proud of that. I didn't just sell because I wanted to make, cash out. I wanted to sell because I wanted to be able to go to New York for a month and run to the park every day and honor my wife and do things at home. I'll be here for a long time. I'm transitioned out of, we hired Josh Dake as our CEO.
Great guy, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as we expand throughout the West, I didn't want to go to California and Arizona and Texas. We promoted Adam Flint to be our VP of operations, one of our branch managers in Portland. He's moved up to take the operational responsibility in Portland. And Tom Demeco is our regional VP in Seattle. He came on board when we hired those two. He and I'd worked together way back in the day at True Green Land Care.
Oh, wow.
So he's VP of Seattle, Adam's VP of Portland. I'm an ambassador and advisor to them, and Josh, our CEO, but I don't have ultimate operational responsibility anymore. So I can still have an impact on the organization, but I also have the flexibility and freedom. And I think the opportunity that's created for the people down in our organization to move up. We've had 3 people move from Portland to Seattle as we continue to grow in Seattle. So great opportunity is created, and I'm there when people need me, and I go away when I'm.
I can see the pride on LinkedIn when you post about your team and what they're doing. And I think that ambassador role fits you so well at this point of the career. And this is a really great model that I think a lot of others can learn from on how to go from a solo company to then a platform company and do it in a way that's elegant and graceful, and that keeps the people that helped build the individual company around to not just build the platform, but ultimately be rewarded when that platform transacts for a second or maybe third time.
Yeah. We didn't get here by ourselves. and by God, we're not going forward by ourselves. So I think those are really important things. Think about your team, think about your customers, think about your organization. My legacy is that this is going to be great when I help transition it into a great organization.
That is ultimately the level 5 leadership that Jim Collins talks about. It's the difference of being a great visionary and a great leader is level 4. Level 5 is being able to transition that leadership and guidance and visionary to the next person in line.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we start to wrap up, Bob, I just would love to hear, like, what are one or two things that you look back on over the last 30 years that have really shaped your career? Was there a property that you landed at an early point in your career or starting, Pacific Landscape, that just moved you into a new level? Was there someone you hired? As you look back, what are one or two or three things that just jump out as pivotal points in your career?
I'd mentioned I learned a lot from the group that I worked with at Northwest Landscape Industries and Rich Ackerman and Jim Waffey. So I really appreciate the base that I developed working for somebody else and the opportunity that they gave me to learn. I think one of the greatest opportunities or decisions I made, my business partner, Elias Godinez, is a very special person. He's a Mexican national. He's a U.S. citizen today. He immigrated here. I got to know him at Northwest Landscape Industries, I think in 1990. He joined, and we worked together there, and he rose up through the ranks. And when I was getting ready to think about I wanted to do something on my own, I didn't want to do it alone. And he is two pieces. He's an operational expert in our field, but more than that, he is a inspirer of people. And to have an immigrant be part owner in a large organization like us, to be that role model of that anything is possible if you are an immigrant to the United States. And his ability to, and I say, not just help train and develop people, but to help people understand before you can really honor and develop your skill and expertise, you've got to believe you're worthy. And I think that is such a key piece that he shows people of, yes, you can learn English. Yes, you can learn technology. Yes, you can get certified here. You are good enough to do that. Even if you didn't graduate from high school in Mexico and you immigrated here and you're really good production work. If you don't believe you're capable, you won't aspire to that level. If you believe you are capable, you can. Of our field managers, equal position to the account manager. Account manager manages the customer relationship. The field manager manages the field. 90% of our field managers started with us as a laborer and worked their way up to be a crew leader and then a supervisor and a field manager. And it's just super rewarding and exciting to see that we've been able to inspire people to be more or to develop in ways that they never thought was possible. And that is something that I am super proud of and feel super fortunate that I met and partnered up with Elias Godinez.
Question, that was perfect. And then you were basically you had a couple of great points there of your pivotal moment.
Maybe the last one is we have, it's all, I believe we take care of plants, but it's all about people. We have always, when a great person comes along that is interested in joining us or somebody that we are maybe recruiting from within the industry, we're going to find room for great quality people because that's what we are. We're a collection of great people that do great work for our customers. So I have challenged myself and our organization, when great people come along, let's acquire talent because talent is what does wonderful, great things. And we've always been focused on, we will grow into somebody that maybe we don't completely have the need for them, as opposed to waiting till you have the need for somebody, you're going to overstress your people. We've always focused on, let's find and hire talent to make sure that we're ready when the next.
I completely agree. People are such an important part of this industry and what we do. And on that note, what's your process when you go to identify great people in terms of trying to hire and recruit them into the organization? What are some characteristics that you really look for when trying to hire someone?
I think first and foremost, some of our best hires have been people that have been hard to compete against, that maybe they're working for a competitor and we've not been able to penetrate their particular portfolio. It's like, oh my gosh, this is somebody that is dazzling customers. This is somebody that we want on our team. Also, a lot of people have come with our employees have relationships. Hey, I worked with this person at this other company. I think he's somebody that would fit within our organization. So it's a collection of seeing within you in the industry and seeing their strength, or having them in a relationship with one of our people who thinks that they are really great and would fit within ours. So that's, I don't look at resumes. I'm going to look at reputations and what I've heard from our customers or our.
Yeah, that's well said. I think a lot of times we focus too much on the resume and the companies they worked at, less about the reputation, characteristics of the person.
Yeah.
So, Bob, you're the chairman of Osprey Landscape Group, and you guys are operating in the greater Western United States. If someone's listening to this podcast and they're in the West and they're thinking, hey, I've been looking for a strategic partner, can you tell us a little bit about Osprey and what you guys are about, the focus of the platform, so people listening could potentially reach out if they're interested in joining?
Yeah, we are looking to expand throughout the West and Southwest. So we would like to be in California. We would like to be in Arizona. We're in Texas, maybe Nevada. And what we're looking for at this point is we'd like to find a platform in each metropolitan area. And it's going to be ideally somebody that is not necessarily ready to just sell and leave, but looks like for a partner to help transition out like I am. Would like to have somebody that has a good reputation in their market that we could help build around and support. Sometimes we can bring support to the table, whether it's financial support, whether it's sales support, whether it's benefits and operational support. The larger an organization has given us the ability we have a very gifted HR manager, a gifted CFO, a gifted fleet manager, a safety and compliance manager. So those are the kind of things that we didn't have in the past. And sometimes those distracting pieces of your business, I want to get out there and do great landscaping work and inspire people and take care of customers. And by the God, you have to do all this other stuff too. So those are things that we can bring to the table and make people's lives easier. But ideally, somebody that is focused in. We're not looking for somebody that is a low-cost leader. We want somebody that has a service that's worthy to justify the right price so you can support the right level of service internally. And again, ideally somebody that wants to partner with us to help transition their organization and not necessarily just take the money and run.
Yeah. Well, the big thing that jumped out to me is you're looking for a partner to stick around and be a partner, not just to exit. And I think for those listening who are thinking about selling at some point, the biggest message that I picked up here from Bob is don't sell when you're completely burnt out and there's no gas in the tank. Leave yourself a little runway to enjoy that transition and usher in that next generation. Maybe it's a 3 to 5 year runway like Bob, you're doing here. And I've seen both play out, and it's clear that what Osprey and your team is doing, Bob, is definitely valuable and benefiting from your involvement. Whether comparative, you just were to hand the keys over to Josh and take off, your mentorship and involvement and being in that ambassador that you are, it's really shown your organization to be a top tier platform. So great job. I really appreciate everything you do for the industry. I think it's truly raising the bar and setting a great standard for all of us to shoot for. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a great discussion, and I really appreciate my relationship with you, Justin.
Same to you, Bob. Well, thanks for your time. Enjoy New York, and we'll be seeing you at a conference, I'm sure, soon.
Thanks for tuning in to Trades Talk, where the next generation of disruptors comes to raise the bar. If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in the trades who's ready to level up. For more tools, insights, and community, follow host Justin White and join the movement at jwhitegroup.com.